Well, welcome everyone to this edition of Connected by Community, a podcast brought to you by Ballantine Capital Advisors. We're here to give you information about our community, businesses, nonprofits, and other various interests. I have Cameron Cannon from our office here with us. And today we're joined by Mr. Chris Ingle from Envirocare. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to be here. And we're talking before kind of some good stuff, so hopefully we'll get back into that. Chris is a pretty passionate guy about landscaping, like we are about financial planning, and that's why we got him here. But before we jump into that, maybe tell everyone who doesn't know you, are you from the area? Are you married? Do you have kids? Kind of tell us a bit about that.
So I'm from Greenville.
A native?
Native. One of the few. They're very hard to find nowadays, I know. From Greenville, I moved here when I was 2. Been here my entire life. Grew up mainly in the Golden Strip area. Simpsonville, and then currently reside in Fountain Inn. Got a wonderful wife, Trisha Searles, and then I got 3 daughters. I got twins that are 8, and then an older daughter who's 12.
You're outnumbered then at your house.
I'm very outnumbered. Yes, I am very outnumbered. Just roll with the punches.
I hear you. And your business is down in that area too, right?
It is. Yeah, we have a facility down in Fountain Inn, right off of Highway 385. And we have been at that location for about 20 years now, actually.
Wow.
So it's been great.
You must have started when you were 10. You're a little pretty young there.
Thanks, Brian. I'll slide you a tip later. Yeah, so I did. I think like a lot of kids, you start mowing mom and dad's grass for them when you're 13, 14 years old. And then the neighbor comes and taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, would you mind cutting my yard? And it starts very organically that way. You start working down the road. And that's exactly how I did too. When my parents separated when I was 10, and I would go to my dad's house on the weekend, and I would spend all day Saturday cutting grass, come home with a pocket full of money. I didn't own a lawnmower. I had to pay for the gas, and everything else was right in my pocket. So at a young age, I realized this is a pretty good gig. And I stuck with it. I graduated from Spartanburg Community College, I think back in the early 2000s, like maybe 2002, 2003, and have really started grown a business from there. We currently have about 50 employees. We service mainly the Greenville County, Spartanburg, and Anderson counties, with most of our work focused in Greenville County.
Do you do commercial, residential, a little bit of both?
We mainly do commercial. We do some residential. We have 2 divisions in our company that we refer to as like landscape maintenance, which is the weekly recurring services where we're going to come out to your property once a week. We're going to cut the grass, trim the shrubs, do the fertilizer, blow everything off, clean up, do perennial or annual flowers and that kind of stuff. And then we have what we call landscape construction, which is a pretty encompassing field. So we start from the ground up. If you've got a new house, we can start with the irrigation installation and take it all the way to completion with plants and sod and mulch and hardscape and the whole 9 yards. Or if you have a renovation, if you've got an older home that you think you just want to update, you've got some overgrown plants, you've got an area of the yard that doesn't look so good, we can come in there and we can clean all that out and we can start over and do something new.
That's me. I just bought an older home, a 1950s house near downtown Greenville, and hopefully my future wife is not watching this because she's going to call me and be like, we need to do hardscape and landscape, and we just need to start all new. Tell them to bring the Bobcat out and scratch everything. So that's awesome. So I guess with older homes and stuff like that, whenever you say start from the scratch, I mean, you do hardscapes and mulch and just kind of everything to kind of bring it back to life?
Yes. So we do that a lot, and we're seeing a lot of that going on now, especially in downtown Greenville, because there's a lot of homes over in the Botany Woods area. A lot of people are going through and they're starting over. So they have a landscape that's there now, and they would come and remove all the shrubs. They would, hardscape is very, very popular. So patios, fire pits, fireplaces, pools, all that kind of stuff has become very popular. So they might add some of those features to their landscape. And then from there, they want to, maybe install irrigation because they've got an older home that's never had irrigation. And irrigation is vital to the survivability of a landscape. We would come in and we'd plant new trees and shrubs. We would sod the yard when we're done, mulch everything. We can do landscape lighting services, which are becoming more and more popular. They really create a lot of interest at night. And yeah, go from there.
So when someone does that, and Cameron, I know this is something you're personally interested in. What do you think, maybe what's a piece of advice somebody should consider even before they call you? Is it just to get realistic, have a budget? I mean, what do they need to do before they make that call to somebody like yourself?
It's interesting you said that, because that was going to be my answer. Have a budget. And we often, there's two things: have a budget and have a time frame you want to create the project in, because a lot of the work that we're doing today was agreed to back in January. So our backlog gets filled up very, very quickly. If you call a landscaper in May, they probably will not be there until the middle of summer. So I think there needs to be some expectations of, what is my time frame for this project? And then secondly, do I have a budget for the project? It's getting, people are more understanding of that now. But in the past, people just didn't have a good feel for what landscaping actually cost. With inflation going up, it's unfortunately, it's more and more every year. And that's something that we have to educate people on when we start the process of talking about new landscape.
Well, I actually got a funny story. So I should have hired a professional. So I think that's the main thing we're going to take away from this. But y'all would have laughed at me. If you would have drove downtown Greenville a couple weeks ago, you would have seen my F-150 backed up into my front yard. My fiance, who's 5 foot tall, tying a tie strap behind a shrub, and I was like spinning tires in the yard trying to pull it out because it was so ugly. So I just did it the good old redneck way, and it turned out terrible. I had a muddy mess in my yard, so I definitely should have hired Chris, because it was a mess.
Well, the demo is always the most exciting part of any project.
Oh, I loved it.
It's the putting everything back that really gets to be the challenge.
The putting everything, that was a struggle.
Talking about hiring a professional, we all probably done at least a little landscaping ourselves, other than our friend Anthony at our office. We'll pick on him while he's not here. He's from Philadelphia, so he's used to concrete. And so
just get out the broom, clean it up.
So, but I think the biggest thing, and my wife picks at me all the time with various projects, but landscaping is no different. Having the right tools matter, right? So one of the things a professional does is not just having extra hands. The right tools make it go quicker and a more competent job. If you've got a machine that will dig versus the human digging, it's going to just go faster, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. Equipment, mechanizing, everything is super important nowadays. And I think autonomy is going to be the next big thing. We're starting to work with some autonomous lawnmowers, and they are hitting the market like crazy right now. And it's because extra hands aren't really available like they used to be.
Are they any good is my question. Are you seeing that some of this stuff actually do good stuff?
It's debatable. My wife hates the one that I have at my house because it doesn't cut straight lines in the yard. And I can understand that. It does look pretty bad at some points in time. But I think we've got to dial it in. And I think that there is definitely a base case for autonomous mowers, kind of like the Roomba style that you'd have out in your yard. There's a myriad of benefits to having that mower. But any kind of equipment in the landscape industry is vital now. And you can see that any trailer riding around town is going to have the best lawnmowers, the best string trimmers. They're going to have skid steers and excavators. And one of the big things now is like a compact excavator, like a Toro Dingo or something like that, because lots are getting smaller and site access is more restricted. And so the more equipment that you can have, the better off you're going to be, the more efficient you're going to be, the easier the job is going to be for your employees, which increases employee satisfaction, which is vital to any industry right now.
Yeah, and I would say one thing too. So like I had to go buy like string trimmers and a blower, and I have a bunch of leaves. Those things are not cheap. So I could definitely see how the prices are going up. Like you're talking about a Toro Dingo. They're like a little mini Bobcat for people who don't know what they are. Those things are awesome, but they are not cheap just because they're small. So like you were saying, lots are getting smaller, going in neighborhoods where you're close to your neighbor. You gotta get the right equipment. And that's definitely not cheap these days.
That's true. The price has increased about 50% on those things in the past 2 years because of the demand.
Jeez.
Really?
So yeah, it's gotten very, very expensive.
Well, is part of that too the labor market? So, even if you're maybe a smaller outfit than yourself, you're like, man, I can't find help. So I've got to have some more equipment and or go faster to be competitive. Is that part of the reason?
That's a huge reason. Yes. Actually, a lot of the autonomous lawnmowers that are coming on the market nowadays, they're being offered by the major manufacturers. And they're not a purchase model, they're a subscription model. So you pay for that mower monthly, which I've heard that some car manufacturers are weighing that same option. But what they've done is they figured out, okay, if I can take this person off of this lawnmower for X amount of hours a month, it will save this company X amount of dollars. Therefore, I'm going to charge them X amount of dollars per month. They're not going to own this lawnmower. They're going to pay me every month to have this lawnmower. So that subscription model is, I think a couple of years ago was named as a solid business investment. If you can have recurring revenue on any kind of spectrum, then you're going to ideally be successful. And more equipment manufacturers are going to that model.
So no different for people out there listening that where you used to buy your Microsoft Office, now you subscribe to 365.
That's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. Yeah, the tech industry figured out how to monetize that, and now equipment manufacturers are following suit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And they'll throw some perks in there, like they might come maintain it for you and change the oil in it and
Right.
a few things like that. But that is definitely the way the world is going, because there's just a shortage of people.
Yeah.
And when there's a shortage of people, you've got to find other ways to get the job done, because the demand is not waning, and there is more and more things that need to be done. And so, you look to autonomy. What can we automate to make these jobs still happen? And that's where the industry is going over the next couple of years in the landscape industry. You will see lawnmowers that are unmanned cutting yards.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe on the scope we can get into, but I'm just totally curious. Do you so they're going to be such that a landscaper does that, or the individual homeowners do it? Meaning, are they going to come set it down and say, "I'll come back in an hour and pick it up," or is the homeowner going to do that?
I think it's going to be more on the landscaper front. There is two options. One of them is more on the landscaper front, where it's basically the lawnmowers that you see nowadays out on anybody's trailer, but they're automated. They're equipped with LiDAR, and they've got safety features on them that they detect somebody or something. They stop immediately, and they turn the blaze off, and they wait for that object to pass. They don't know what the object is, but they wait for it to pass. So you'll see those on landscapers. Now, there is some homeowner versions that look kind of, I'm sure everybody's seen them, like the Husqvarna and Steel will offer the little Roomba-style lawnmowers, which are electric. And that's what we're venturing into. And we have a few of those out on properties. I think we have one actually at our shop, and the results I think are great. It really does a nice job, because it's constantly cutting the grass. It's not a stopping by once a week to cut everything. It's cutting the yard every single day. It doesn't cut 100%, but that little bit that it does really benefits the yard a lot, because it's getting that constant manicuring, very similar to the theory of a golf course. The more you cut it, the better the product is going to be. And so on the homeowner level, homeowners will be able to set those up. There's some complexity to those. So what I feel like will ideally happen, unless somebody's very tech savvy and has the equipment to install these lawnmowers, the landscapers will have these at sites, which is what we're going to try to do. Have these at a site. We're going to maintain them. We're going to own them. And the customers are still going to pay us to come out there and do the landscaping. So we will complement
So somebody's
their
still going to
services.
be edge and do some of the things.
Exactly. Yes.
But instead of a 2-man crew, you might have, or 3-man crew, you might have a 1-man crew be able to do the whole thing.
Exactly. And I don't think that we will scale down our crew size, because what that will allow us to do is to focus on more of the detail work. That'll
Right.
focus on trimming the shrubbery. It'll focus on getting the weeds out of the beds,
Right.
Limbing up trees, detailing the annual flowers, or cutting perennials back, or whatever that task is for the time of the year that we're looking at. It will allow our current staff to focus on that. Instead of keeping a person on a mower for 3 or 4 hours a day, it will allow them to get off that mower and then do some of what we refer to as detail work, which is really should increase the product a lot, the end result a lot.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mhm.
I had no idea when we sat down and talked about this. This is what we're going to talk about.
I know. Me
That's
either.
the fun thing about this podcast
Yeah.
is you don't know. So, but I do want to jump into, so we somewhat mentioned it, but what are some of the trends, whether it's new or even remodel? Because when you're remodeling, you're kind of making new. What are some of the current trends? And maybe some you like and some you don't like, but people like them. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that.
There's a lot of trends. I think I mentioned hardscape was a really big trend. Now, people want to have outdoor living spaces, and they are absolutely wonderful. If you have a patio that you can sit on at night and just have a conversation with your family or have guests over, fire pits are all the rage. Everybody, to have fire outside, whether you're roasting marshmallows or just enjoying it on a fall night, fire pits are very, very popular. There is gas models available. There's propane models available. There's wood burning, the old school wood burning type available too. And we can install all those. Landscape lighting is another big trend. Just working with the light to accent different features or to create shadows at night. So as the trees move, it kind of moves on the ground. There's a lot of beauty in that too. And it adds a lot of security to the house. You've got lights around the house at locations you typically wouldn't have it. So you've got that additional security feature built in there as well. Another trend we're seeing is quite a few people are moving to instead of doing the traditional mulch and pine straw, they're doing river rock in their beds or some sort of rock in their beds. That's a pretty good investment. It's a big investment up front to do that because the material is very expensive. The payback is you're not going to have to replace that in a 5 to 10 year time frame, depending on where it is and what it does. But we're seeing more people using rock in their plant beds as opposed to using mulch and pine straw. Other than that, a lot of other trends is with turf. We're seeing more and more artificial turf installed. Artificial turf is a great alternative. It's a little relative. If you put down natural turf like Bermuda or fescue, there's a price for that, a certain amount of price per square foot. The price for artificial is exponentially more, but you're paying for everything you would pay for with the natural turf up front. So for example, artificial turf, you're not going to water it. You're not going to fertilize it. You're going to go out there and blow it off if you get some leaves on it. And that's about it. And those products are about a 15-year product now. So, you figure for 15 years, you're going to have this great green looking lawn all the time. If you do go with a natural turf lawn, then there's other things that a lot of the suppliers are working towards, and that's drought tolerance. That's a very, very big conversation now. Water in this area isn't at a premium yet, but I just saw an article yesterday where Southern California is going to put water restrictions where you can only water your yard once a day. It will come this way eventually. I think water is going to be a commodity, and there's a whole conversation about that too. So drought tolerance, anything that can survive with less water is a big trend right now. Plant material wise, turf wise, ground cover, all that kind of stuff.
I want to ask about that turf thing. It's interesting because I've seen some neighbors do that with all or parts of their yard. And you mentioned 15 years. Are they getting better making it look real? I'll call it. I saw some years ago where you could tell
like carpet.
It looked like what they had
putting green
in the old 1980 football stadiums,
like
right?
AstroTurf or
yeah,
something, right?
So does it look more realistic and not just and I guess the other question with that is when it's winter, is it odd to have a green grass and it sticks out? Okay, yeah, it looks realistic, but it's not realistic.
The first question, yes, it looks very realistic. They've even got it now where they will put brown color in there to make it look like thatch, to make it look more natural. You can buy it in different heights. You can get it all the way down to what you're referring to, like the AstroTurf, like a putting green grade that you can putt on. You can even get it, I think around like 1.5 inches to 2 inches is the highest you can get it, which really mimics a yard. And if you weren't really paying attention, you would just think that it's somebody's yard. It's regular grass. So yes, they have it. They have lots of different options available. And they do have it where it looks completely natural. It looks like a regular yard now.
So maybe not as lime of a green, but a darker green that looks more natural They've
got all kinds of shades. They've got it lime green. They've got it as green as your shirt. They've got some that have a little bit of blue in there. They've really got a whole spectrum of turf that you can buy. And it just depends on your liking. We're doing a job now for a customer up in Travelers Rest. And she was very specific on what color she wanted, and we were able to find it for her. And it was the artificial turf was called a Bermuda turf, but they have what they call Bermuda, Zoysia, and they're just different names, and it refers to the width of the actual blade itself. And so it really mimics grass a lot.
And you're seeing that, historically, I guess I'd see something like that more commercially, but you're seeing that more residentially now, right?
We're seeing that more residential. And a great application for that, and what we recommend to people a lot of times is, trees are invaluable. They provide shade, they provide comfort. Never mind all the environmental benefits of having a large tree in your yard, but people want to have grass. There's something about having grass under a tree, whether you're letting your dog out, your kids are playing in the yard or whatever. Grass and trees don't mix. We wish we could. We wish we had that answer. If I had $1 for every time I was asked that question, I would be on an island somewhere. Artificial turf is definitely the answer in that scenario because you can have the shade. You don't have to worry about limbing the tree up or reducing the canopy to get sunlight down there to it. Artificial turf is green. You have the tree. You blow the yard off every now and then, and it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, that's one of my problems. So I have like massive trees in my yard, and I'm torn because I want to cut them down so I can have grass, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, this is a beautiful tree. It's like provides shade. I'm kind of surrounded from my neighbors, but at the same time, like I let my dog out and he comes in and he's dirty, so I got to clean him off every time. Yeah. So it's tough. It's a balance. So that'd be a good place to have it. But I know you said the cost. So the cost is obviously a lot more expensive than if you were to just go get sod, or I guess how does that kind of compare?
It's about 15 times more money.
Jeez.
Generally.
So I was like 15, right?
15 times, right? So quick math, and this isn't accurate up to date, but let's say you pay $1 a square foot for sod. Artificial turf is, between 15 and 20, depending on what type of artificial turf you use. And that's a square foot price.
Gotcha.
Holy cow.
But again, you're not paying for, and this is the intangibles, right?
There's no maintenance.
You're not paying for water. You're not paying for fertilizer. You're not paying somebody to cut it or using your own time to cut it, which is a gas saving. So at the end of the day, it's a money saver, but you have to front all that money in the beginning, which is the hard thing to digest. If you have that opportunity, it definitely is worth it in the long run.
So here's what I'm envisioning. Someone puts a geothermal HVAC, they put solar panels, and they put the artificial turf down. They're golden for 15 years, right?
Yeah. Theoretically, exactly right. Yeah. They're golden for 15 years. Not anything to worry about.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. One of the things we were kind of chatting about before you came in, some people don't think of this as commercial. I think you said you call this commercial. I would. Some of your work is in the subdivision world, right?
Yes.
And we're seeing more townhomes, condos, group living, or even nice custom homes that are 3 feet apart because people don't want to do the maintenance, right? So all the maintenance, quote, included. And maybe some people, either new homeowners or it's a custom home and they're new to that situation. Talk a little bit about how landscape maintenance is different for homeowners association or groups than individuals.
Right. Yeah, it is very different. There is a lot more townhomes coming up. There's a lot of all maintenance included communities out there. And so it's a little different in that the landscaping company that's out there, unfortunately, is not a concierge service. You can make requests and stuff like that, but there's a scope that's outlined in the beginning of that contract. And whatever's in that scope is what we'll execute, Some people want to be very active in the yard, and then that's great because it makes a better finished product. Some people want to be completely hands-off because they bought a house or a townhome and it says everything's included, and by gosh, I want everything included in that, So there is, there's the conversation that we have a couple of times a year where somebody says, well, I'm paying, $200 for my HOA dues, and you guys are getting paid a truckload of money to come do my landscaping for me. Why are you not doing A, B, C, and D? Why are you not aerating? Why are you not top dressing, et cetera? Some of the higher end care practices for landscaping. And we kind of break it down and we say, okay, well, at the end of the day, we're making, $4 to $8 per visit here at your house. And when they hear that, you can kind of see a light bulb go off to say, oh yeah, that's right. We have a strategic reserve that we're saving money for. And we've got to pay for replacing the roofs, and we've got to pay for the paint. So when you're able to kind of give them that quick math on what we are actually making per visit, it kind of puts things in balance a little bit. And they say, okay, well, for $4 a week, you guys are doing a great job cutting my grass. Thank you. Do
you want to increase your regime fees? Will be the
That's
other
right.
part,
Yeah, increase your regime fees or whatnot. So and when you say we're happy to, if you want to go out and get another service to do your yard in particular, that's fine. But I think you're going to have a hard time finding somebody to come out here for $5 or $6 or $7 a week to do that.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way. We are able to offer those prices because we can pull up the truck, we can park the truck, and our crews can be there for a full day or a half a day, whatever's required to do that. We really pride ourselves on the quality of work that we do. We don't advertise. So our advertisement is when our truck is sitting there, how the landscape looks. If it looks good, we've done a good job. If there's some work that needs to be done, we intend to do that work at all costs to make it look right, to fulfill our end of the obligation. And so I think those conversations just need to be in the back of your mind that, hey, the landscapers, although I see them every single week, they are not getting all of my HOA dues that I'm paying to the HOA because there's a whole nother fund there somewhere, or there's a light bill that comes in every month, or we got to pay for the pool maintenance. I got to pay the pool guy every month too. So there's a lot of other costs that go into that HOA fee that I think some people just don't realize in the moment.
And I think in hearing that, it reminds me, it's hard to please everyone all the time when you're dealing with large groups too, right?
It is.
So when you're cutting for 300 people in a subdivision, someone's probably not going to be happy. There's just no way.
It's inevitable. And we can always find those people pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They are always the most vocal. We always say at work that the plants don't complain. The grass doesn't care if it's cut. The shrubs don't care if they're trimmed. It's the people that keep us on our toes and keep us doing what we need to do to make it look good.
That's awesome. So talk about people. We talked about, you mentioned the word inflation. What's the challenge been for you in keeping people, and maybe when some of these subdivision folks, they ought to be nicer to the folks. Because, one of the things I've tried to do, it's off the subject, but when I go into restaurants, I'm trying to tip a little better. I'm thankful someone's there, right?
Somebody's there working. They showed up today.
And so, we're all human and make mistakes and et cetera. But what's some of the challenges in finding work, and what have you had to do to be creative to find workers to help out?
So the first question, finding work has not been a problem at all. Like I said, we don't advertise and we really let our work speak for itself. So we have always had a great customer base and a lot of loyal clients. We have a lot of communities that we've maintained for 7, 8, 9 years. And in the commercial world, for most commercial landscape companies that you see around town, if they can maintain a contract for 2 years, they feel like they've been a huge success. We don't look at it that way. We look at it that we want to develop a partnership with whoever we're working with, because we want to do everything on your site. Because if you have another company and they're doing something, it reflects on us, because our trucks are all logoed, our employees are all uniformed, they have safety vests on. We sell a brand and an image of professionalism and high quality. So we want our employees to exhibit that. Employees are very hard to find right now. And I think that you probably have heard this term that the past 2 years have been coined the great business creation. Have you heard that term?
Yep.
So we are seeing that more and more. We are seeing more and more people going out and starting their own business. And you can't fault them. It's the American dream. They are able to do the work. They can do it at a high quality. And so we've had a challenge with that, with some of our employees have worked for us for many, many years, and they've decided to go out and start their own business. And we wish them the best of luck, and we tell them that if something doesn't work out, we'd love to have them back. Hiring new employees has been a huge challenge the past couple of, we typically in the springtime will have 75 to 100 applications in the month of April. I think we got 15 or 20 this year. So, with the demand on labor and personnel the way that it is, we don't see any real relief. And I think that's why everybody is trying to find more creative ways to produce the same amount. And for us, the big thing is, A, produce the same amount. B, keep the quality where it is. You've got to do quality work. You can't cut corners. And if you cut corners, that's really a major problem. And then get everything done at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of businesses have faced that, but certainly the service businesses in general. Mm-hmm. So I understand that that's a challenge. And if I remember right, you speak a little Spanish too. That helps be able to communicate with multiple populations, right?
It does, yeah.
So how did that come about? Just out of a necessity, or
because I started this business in high school, I took Spanish in high school, and I think when you can. Everybody's set through high school Spanish or high school French, and they go home and all their friends speak English and all that kind of stuff.
And they forget everything.
Yours was reinforced.
Yeah. My senior year of high school, I had employees. And when I graduated high school, I hired 2 Hispanic guys. And so I was able to further that conversation with them. And frankly, working with the Hispanic community over the past 25 years has been great because I'm able to communicate with them. They can communicate with me. If they speak very fast, I have a very hard time. I have to say, let's slow down a little bit. Yep. I think just like most second languages, it takes a little while. There's different dialects that you hear and that kind of stuff. So my only formal education was in high school. I can speak Spanish. I can say lots of Spanish words. It's not grammatically correct, but I can get the point across of and have a conversation.
I guess if someone's mad at you in Spanish then too, right?
Yes.
They can't be talking behind your back at work.
You can hear that. And if they're talking very fast, I have a hard time understanding it, but I can tell if somebody's upset with me. And if they are, I say, hey, is there anything I can do to help? You seem a little agitated today. What can we do?
That's awesome. What other things you have, Mr. Cameron? I have one more question I want to ask, but I didn't know if there's anything else about remodeling. You want to make sure you got anything so you don't get in trouble when you get home. You didn't ask the right question.
I would just say what are some of the best hardscape type things that you can do to a home that really adds value to a house? Because I know I'm looking like maybe doing like some small little retaining walls and fixing up some beds. I guess what's some stuff other than going and buying a pool, that's kind of out there, kind of fairly expensive that you can do for, maybe $5,000 or something that would really increase the value of a home that, maybe has an older landscape like mine?
Yeah, for sure. A patio somewhere adds a tremendous amount of value. Whether that's going to be try to think about when you're siting your patio, where is it shady in the afternoon? Because you do not want to put a brick patio or a rock patio in full sun because you will not use it. It really needs to have shade, ideally in the evening time. So whether that's in the front of the house, whether that's under a tree, whether that's just it has the shade of the house in the afternoon to cover it. Where could I install the patio at? Try to go at least about 200 square feet on that patio because I've never had anybody say they made their patio too big. It is always too small. For a table and chairs, you typically need about 100 square feet for that, but you're going to have a table and chairs. You probably want to have an Adirondack chair too. So, 200 square feet or more is ideally a good range to start with some kind of patio in the living space. Outside of that, outdoor kitchens are really popular now. You put a grill out there, you get a little countertop, a little sink, etc. And then, like I said, fire pits are always a huge attraction. Everybody seems to huddle around those all the time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Plenty of stuff to spend your money on.
Yeah,
right?
plenty of stuff. Goodness. I have to start saving.
So my $1 million question is really simple, and I think it's from having been a little bit of a gypsy and moved in several houses. I've had all these. So the $1 million question is this: fescue, Bermuda, Zoysia, or is there something else in the upstate?
That's a good question. Yeah. So we can. How much?
That's a whole show,
How
right?
much time do we have on this podcast? 'Cause
No, I've kind of saved that toward the end because I've been wanting to ask it, and I certainly have some personal preferences. And mine's based mostly not necessarily on looks; it's based on maintenance and et cetera. But I'm curious the professional's view.
That's a great question, and so we're really lucky here in the upstate. We got a really good climate, but what we are is we're considered the transition zone, and the transition zone means we're a little too warm for cool season grasses like fescue, and sometimes we're a little too cool for some of the warm season grasses like seashore paspalum or St. Augustine or something like that. So we have those three options, and it depends a lot on the exposure of the yard. If you have a lot of shade in the yard, you need to take that into account. You still need to have about 6 hours a day worth of sun in that area to grow any kind of grass. If you don't have 6 hours of sun, you really need to consider something else.
Mulch.
Ground cover, artificial turf, either one of those options would be a good option. But yeah, mulch is probably your easiest answer. So there's advantages and disadvantages to each, and I'll kind of break them down. Fescue is pretty labor intensive. Fescue, you do have to overseed once a year in the fall. Typically in late September, early October, you want to go through and core aerate and seed the fescue because you're replenishing what has died over the summertime. You're going to fertilize fescue more. You're going to fertilize it about 8 or 9 times a year. In order to have a really nice fescue yard, you want to put down fungicides all summer long, starting in late May and going all the way through the end of September. You want to have a fungicide down about every 28 to 30 days on that yard to prevent a disease called brown patch. Brown patch doesn't typically kill the fescue, but it will make it look bad. You'll see exactly what it sounds like. You'll see brown patches out in the yard. It is easy to prevent, but you need to get the applications down. In irrigation, you've got to have irrigation on fescue. If you don't, you just lay $100 out in the yard and see if it's there tomorrow. Because it is in middle of July. If you don't have irrigation on fescue, it's going to die pretty quickly.
And I'll give you an amen on all that you just said.
Yeah. So you've had a fescue before? I've
had them all, and I'll go ahead and I don't mean to jump in, but fescue to me is the prettiest.
It is
when it's done right, but it's prettiest in probably about March and October. The rest of the time,
yeah,
it's so stinking difficult. I would never want it again, personally, and I hope I'm not offending anyone. And it's not because I don't like it. I'm not willing to do the work, money, time, energy, and effort. It's just too hard. And to me, when grass should look good, which is June, July, and August, it looks its worst.
Yes.
Because it's always stressed by the heat. We just are too hot here. I'm not in your business, but that's my take.
Exactly right. Yes.
But March, April, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
you won't find anything better.
Everybody wants a fescue yard in the springtime.
Right.
And then
I've had a ton of shade. It might be a little better, but all in all, I'm not a big fan because of the climate and the work.
Mm-hmm. Bermuda is a great option. Zoysia is a close second. Zoysia makes a very nice yard. One thing with Zoysia that a lot of people don't realize is it doesn't hold up extremely well to foot traffic, and especially animal traffic, and especially dogs. If you have a dog on Zoysia is so slow growing, which is one of its advantages. You don't have to worry about that thing flushing out and growing 2 or 3 inches in the middle of June. It's an advantage because it lets you cut grass. It's a disadvantage because if the dogs use the restroom on it, it makes a dead spot. And it takes that dead spot several years to grow in. And if you've got a small Zoysia patch and you've got a dog of any size on it, you're going to have spots in the yard during the most important time of the year when it's going to be green. So we often steer people to Bermuda. There's several newer varieties of Bermuda on the market that really work great. They're hybridizing that now to where it will grow a little slower. You won't see as much growth in the summertime. It requires a little bit less water, and the color stays real nice and green. One major argument against Bermuda for many, many years was because of the frequency of our service, which is once a week. When we come out there in summertime, we have what's called scalping. So basically, we've cut all the green off the grass, and you see these brown streaks everywhere. There's several reasons for that. And I think that's where autonomous lawnmowers, like we talked about earlier, will come in and help because they're consistently cutting. That's why golf courses are always green. You need to cut Bermuda 2 or 3 times a week during the hottest part of the summertime.
Really?
Is to get the best look out of it.
That's when you get one of those true real mowers and you go out there every day. My dad has one of those at his house, and I was like, dude, I'm not cutting the grass every day for you. Like this, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, you'll see diehards that do that.
Yeah.
There's several people that do.
Yeah, I mean, they'll cut like this much off every day. And I'm like, all right, this is, it looks beautiful, but I don't have time for this.
And I think as a homeowner, so I'm talking about the fescue, and I currently have Zoysia. I've had Zoysia now twice, and I've had Bermuda a couple of times, and I would absolutely test. In fact, at our office, we have Zoysia, a different kind of Zoysia than my house. But there was a hole when we originally bought the property where they had the sign. A year and a half later, it still's not completely filled in.
Right.
It grows that slow. It fills in, but if you've got a hole, don't expect it to happen fast.
But if you are maybe retired, you don't have a lot of kids at home, or the kids don't get out in the yard, it is a beautiful lawn.
No, it's great.
Zoysia, hands down, it gives you the blade width of a fescue, but it gives you the warm season growth, which is where you talked about, June, July, and August, when the yard should look good. It looks good. It has a little bit lower water requirements, which is nice, and it has a little bit less fertilizer requirements too, in that it'll keep its color a little bit longer. There's 2 types of Zoysia. There's a really thin bladed Zoysia, like Emerald or Xeon or something like that, and then you have thicker bladed Zoysia like El Toro or Palisades. I personally like the thicker bladed Zoysias a lot. The fine blade Zoysias, typically you do need a reel mower to really maximize that and really make that look good. It can make it look like a golf course with that type of mower, and you only have to cut it once a week, which is a huge advantage. Some of the thin bladed Zoysias can take shade better. I think Xeon is a really good shade tolerant variety to use. Again, I preface that with, you still need to have about 5 or 6 hours a day for the sun. If you don't have that, it's a waste of money, a total waste of money. So they each have their ranges. Now, one thing that we've seen the past couple of years is we're getting actually brown patch in coarse bladed Zoysias or thicker bladed Zoysias in the springtime. So what you'll see is when your Zoysia is growing back out, you'll just see these big dead spots in the yard, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. You have to apply a fungicide, they'll come back in. And that is a little bit of a downfall for the Zoysias, but that is really one of the only major problems that we've seen with it.
Yeah.
But we do push a lot of people, especially if they're going to be active in the yard, they're going to get out and play ball with their kids, they're going to have a dog. Bermuda, hands down, is the way to go.
And Bermuda, and the challenge, I had Bermuda years ago, but it sounds like they may have fixed this, is it grows so rapidly.
Yes.
It was the weed eating and getting in the beds. I'm like, threw my hands in there. I'm like, man, I can't be out here twice a week weed eating.
Yes.
Right? Or, the shoots coming off. But if they've slowed that down, that might be a better option, at least for some people.
They have slowed that down. And there's also some products you can apply. You can apply growth regulators to Bermuda in summertime. So if you have some of the older varieties, which one is like Tifway 419, which probably was installed on 75% of the houses between 2000 and I'm going to say 2018, 2019, you can apply growth regulators to those in the summertime and slow those down and get a much, much better finished product out of it, and allow you to just cut it once a week and maintain more green during that cut. Some of the newer varieties like Tiff Tough, Tiff Grand, all these come out of Tifton, Georgia, by the way. That's where the Tiff comes from. Cool. They all are a little bit slower growing and maintain their color a little bit better too. So there's some other varieties available. Celebration Bermuda is another really popular one. So there are different varieties available, just to all serve different purposes. So
I tell you what, and think about it, we probably could have had a whole podcast on grass.
We really
maybe we
can.
need to come back to that,
Yes.
because we're kind of, now we're getting in. We've covered a lot today, but I didn't know some of the directions, some of it with maybe using AI and then the amount of grass. So maybe if we could twist your arm, maybe we'll have you back, maybe even the fall, talk about fall projects or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's just a lot to unpackage in landscaping. It's not It's all the way from hardscapes to remodeling to commercial to grass.
And I need it all, unfortunately. So it sounds like I need to start saving all my money. Goodness.
So, but I know Cameron wants to ask one last question before we wrap up here today.
So we have a signature question we always try to ask. So what makes you tick?
You know, I saw that on the list and I've been thinking about that. And this is going to sound really cheesy. I really just enjoy a good landscape. And you can ask my wife and kids, if we go out of town, we go to a botanical garden in that town to see it. Just the diversity of plants, the planting schemes, the colors, the textures. We went to Asheville a couple of weeks ago and went to North Carolina Arboretum. And it blew my mind how beautiful that place was. I really just enjoy that. And I want to be able to recreate that as much as I can. Just like anything, I'm sure you're in the same business. When you're in that business, you typically see all the faults of somebody else, and it drives you crazy.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. I can ride down Woodruff Road and be like, they shouldn't be doing that. They should have cut that. They need to spray that, you know? But just to really provide a high quality service and really maximize the landscape in whatever way that is, whether it's at a restaurant and they just want to have some seasonal color out front, or whether it's a residential home and they want to have a really nice patio in the back, whatever value we can bring is really what makes me tick. It just the passion for good quality landscaping.
Well, we can definitely see that. I mean, we've been talking about landscape forever, and you've been lit up the whole time. So we can see the passion.
And even before.
Even before, we had to stop you to make sure we could get it on the show.
And I think, like I said, I think we can make 3 shows out of this. So we're going to twist your arms and have you back. Okay. And we're going to focus on a topic. We're going to figure out what it is.
Grass could be an entire topic. I tell you, I could geek out on grass. Probably like you could geek out on the market.
Well, I mean, and if you've been a homeowner, you can relate, right?
Yes.
So most people on this podcast say, well, I mean, I don't care who you are, you can relate to cutting grass, dealing with grass, whatever. So awesome stuff. So for our listeners, if you wouldn't mind, if they wanted to reach out to you to find more about your services, see if you could help them with a project, how could they find you? Either internet, email, phone number, that kind of stuff.
So we are on, if you go to the internet, where it's EnvirocareLandscape.com. We have a contact on there. You can send us an email and we'll reach out to you that way. We're on Facebook. I think we're on Instagram too. My wife does all that, so I'm not 100% sure how that all works, but I think the internet probably be the best way.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, and we really appreciate it. And again, we'll twist your arm to have you back another time.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And again, we're connected by community. Go out and find us on all the various social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and et cetera, and all the podcast platforms. Until we see you again, go out and make our community great.